The Deputy Attorney General met with Jeffrey Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell for a second day of questioning. Now, Maxwell is currently serving a 20-year prison sentence for helping the convicted sex offender recruit and traffic underage girls. Todd Blanche, that's the second highest ranking official at the Justice Department, reached out to her this week for any more information about the Epstein case. Maxwell's lawyer says the meeting was productive.
Ghislaine answered every single question asked of her over the last day and a half. She answered those questions honestly, truthfully, to the best of her ability. The truth will come out about what happened with Mr. Epstein, and she's the person who's answering those questions.
Before leaving the White House for Scotland this morning, President Trump was asked about what Maxwell could get in return for speaking with the DOJ.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell if she cooperated?
It's something I haven't thought about. It's really something. It's something I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
And we're also keeping an eye on the Middle East, where ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas have stalled. The president's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, says Hamas has not acted in good faith. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says deportation flights have started to take off from the Trump administration's so-called Alligator Alcatraz detention facility. But we begin with CBS News Justice Department reporter Jake Rosen on the DOJ meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell. Jake, appreciate you joining us here on a Friday. So what do we know about this second meeting with Maxwell, and where do we go from here?
Well, what we know is that it lasted a day and a half, and neither side, as you just played some sound from President Trump there and Maxwell's attorney, ruled out the possibility of some kind of pardon or agreement as Maxwell is taking her appeal to the Supreme Court. At the same time, I've reached out to the Department of Justice to see if these meetings are going to continue at some time next week. Have not gotten an answer on that yet, but we did hear Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche say yesterday that he will release more information about these conversations at the appropriate time. The big outstanding thing here is what happens the next couple of days as this political football keeps getting passed, it looks like, between the Department of Justice, the White House, and Capitol Hill as to who's going to put that maximum amount of pressure on the Trump administration to release something out of these Epstein files, of which the DOJ says nothing is going to come out. President Trump says there's a possibility, and a whistleblower says that FBI agents spent hundreds of hours of manpower, including hundreds of new agents who were brought in to review all the files to find something, and they weren't able to bring anything.
I like how you termed that the political football, because it really does seem to be going back and forth here. I want to ask you, though, I mean, while these meetings are happening, Maxwell is actively appealing her conviction. Here's what her lawyer said about that earlier.
She has been treated unfairly for the past 5 years. She didn't get a fair trial. We're still appealing to the Supreme Court. We're just trying to get through the process where we are now and get her some relief.
So he says not a fair trial. On what grounds is Maxwell arguing that her conviction should be overturned?
Well, there were two, Kelly. The first of which is that a juror said after the fact that they wanted to be on this jury and spoke about how they deliberately intended to be on this after they were brought in for jury selection. That's one way. But the way that they're going to appeal to the Supreme Court, this attorney said, starting Monday, is by claiming that there was a 2007 agreement between the Justice Department, then under President Obama, and Epstein, in which the Department of Justice said, as a precursor to any investigation, that they would not go after any co-conspirators. Obviously, that was reneged upon as Maxwell was, again, charged and convicted and sentenced for helping him traffic young women. They're saying that that agreement should have been maintained over all this, despite Epstein's death, despite the developments that we've seen in the almost 20 years since that time, and that because of that, and legal scholars have cast some merit on this, there is a chance that the Supreme Court could potentially side to them. An appeals court ruled 2-1 that this could continue.
Well, I know you're going to keep following this. Jake Rosen, thank you. President Trump has kicked off what the White House describes as a working visit to Scotland. Now, that includes trips to 2 of his luxury golf courses and meetings with European officials. But that controversy over Jeffrey Epstein is following him overseas. Upon arrival, the president shot down reporters' questions about the convicted sex offender.
I'm focused on making deals. I'm not focused on conspiracy theories that you are. I mean, I watch you people. It's so sad. You ought to talk about the success of our country instead of this nonsense that you talk about over and over again.
CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang is traveling with the president and joins us now from Scotland. So, Weijia, what's the latest on how the president is trying to shift focus away from the Epstein story? And is the rest of Washington ready to move on?
Well, it depends on who you ask in Washington, because certainly there are Democrats and even several Republicans who still want more documents to be made public with regard to the Jeffrey Epstein case. As far as what the president's doing to try to move on, he is obviously trying to put an emphasis on what he's working on here in Scotland, potential trade deal with the EU, highlighting the trade deal that he signed with the UK, and also meeting with the Scottish top official. And of course, he's also trying to discredit this renewed interest in the Epstein case. And as we've been reporting all week, even raising a new question, a new story about former President Barack Obama with allegations of potential treason from President Trump, because he claims that Obama orchestrated an intelligence report that was meant to discredit other findings that Russia had interfered in the 2016 presidential election. All that to say that the president really is trying to put the focus elsewhere, anywhere else but Epstein. He's made clear he wants to move on from this story, but he also continues to talk about it because he wants to defend himself, as he wants to make his case that, he has nothing to do with the Epstein files, and that his administration is trying to uncover as much information as possible. That is what they are trying to signal, at least. Kelly.
Yeah, passing that political football, as Jake Rosen just said, around quite often there. But let's get to the point of why you are in Scotland. You just mentioned a little bit of what is on the president's agenda, but what can we expect from him over the next few days?
Well, he's mainly here to tour his private golf resorts in Aberdeen and Turnberry. But of course, as we've been talking about, it is a trip that is business mixed with pleasure. And so he will be meeting with those foreign leaders I talked about to try to get more from the European Union with regard to a trade deal. Today, he said the chance of that was 50-50 or less. He also said there were probably 20 or so sticking points, which is not exactly optimistic, but he will speak face-to-face with the EU president and then highlight the trade deal that was signed back in June with the UK. He also acknowledged that if he were able to get that EU deal over the line, it would be quite significant because they are, of course, one of our biggest trading partners.
Yeah, that's right. Something that we're going to be watching. And Weijia, I hope you get a little business mixed with pleasure there in Scotland this weekend. Thank you.